Great. So let's get started. I hope this works technically. So a very warm welcome from my side to the summit, the Innovation Games Summit. I had the pleasure to be there in Amsterdam last year. Unfortunately, this year I couldn't make it to the US end of December. Year-end business going on over here. Let me quickly take the chance and introduce myself. My name is Neils Feldman. I'm a researcher at the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology, which is one of the leading universities, technical universities over here in Germany. I'm also an IBMer who is sent here to the university for a couple of years to do research in collaboration with researchers from the institute here. About a year ago, no, 2 years ago, Luke and I met in California. And I'll give you a little bit of the story in a minute when I go through my charts. And basically, out of this very first meeting over in California, we designed a whole research program, and this is what I'll report about today. I want to give you an idea what my research is about. I do a lot of research in the area of service innovation management, so how to manage innovation or how to do innovation management in service companies. And as you all may know, there's these process charts, these stage gate models that you see all along the publications. And what I want to focus on today, so this is just to make you aware where we are, in terms of our research. We want to have a look at idea portfolios and picking and choosing ideas from an idea portfolio to pursue on them and finally, hopefully, pushing them out to the market. This, in fact, as a task, is not a new task. We know this for quite a while, and there have been lots of publications, lots of methods around on how to do this, actually. However, in the past decade, the challenge of picking and choosing from idea portfolios changed a little bit, and new requirements emerged. One of the set of new challenges that emerged is basically going back to the invention, I would say, of open innovation. Because of the open innovation popularity in companies today, we see a lot of increasing size of idea portfolios. So they get larger and larger. And while we were talking very often in the 90s, 80s, 90s, about hundreds of ideas in a portfolio, today we talk about thousands or 10,000s of ideas. Mostly this leads to a problem of dealing with all these ideas, i.e. having a look at them and assessing them properly. So there's simply not enough time to do that. And because of this what some authors describe as a hollow go decision. This is what happens. So this means just some ideas get, waved through, they put into the next round, they're supposed to be conceptualized, they're supposed to be finalized. However, they're not really provided, or the people who came up with these ideas are not really provided with the proper means, i.e. they're not time or not enough money. So this is what the authors describe as a hollow go decision. There is also a potential out there, and in particular in the larger and larger service organizations that we see out in the market, we do see the chance of using the staff of these large organizations, these large service organizations. Just imagine like a consultancy. They have thousands of people who are out at the market, they're highly skilled, they interact with the senior management of their clients. So they are really proxies of the market out there. And we could tap this knowledge of our staff. And this is, up to the moment today, not really done most of the time. However, these guys holding the knowledge that we want to use for our decision making, their job is actually to keep the clients happy out there. So involving them in any kind of decision making inside the company is a little bit of an extra mile for them. So we have to make sure that the way we engage them in decision making is attractive. Otherwise, they're probably not willing to go the extra mile. And also there has been some report on increasing chances and to do a proper decision making, to involving people when we do this in a very structured manner, mostly by support of IT systems. This probably ties back to the size of idea portfolios. So this is a set of new requirements that emerged in the past decade, and this is well documented in literature. About 2 years ago, I met Luke in California, and the reason why I met him is that I heard about the budget games in San Jose. And when I heard about the budget games, I said, well, this bio-feature game that they use over there, it sounds like an interesting way to make decisions about a portfolio, and why couldn't we just evaluate this and have a closer look in our more corporate decision-making environment? So Luke and I met and invited him over to Karlsruhe, to Germany, and he was there in late November, early December, pretty much exactly 2 years ago. We had a workshop here, inviting students, inviting executives of a bank, in fact, and we're trying out bio-feature just in a workshop, just to get an idea what it feels like. And finally, we said, oh, it's worth pursuing on this research. And we got involved, a company, a German bank, and they were willing to support us by providing us access to one of their Eastern European branch offices, and use bio-feature for an academic task in their idea management process. So we got access to 8 people in the Eastern European office. We got 27 ideas, and we finally applied the game and had a look at how do people perceive it, what kind of outcome do they show, and I mean, this was only to get an idea how the whole thing works. This is not, I mean, in terms of academic research, this is not yet totally rigorous, but it was an idea. It was kind of a pre-study for us, and the reactions of the people were very, very positive. Overall, they said that in terms of involvement, they really liked the game. They found it pretty enjoyable. They would even play it in their spare time. And when we asked them, the process that you have established in your company today, how do you feel about this? Would you, spend extra time? Would you spend your spare time on supporting the current process? And actually, nobody reacted to this. Everybody said, no, I mean, this is just pure business. And now the new way here, this game is a bit of fun. So they were actually willing to do this in their spare time. So when we said this pre-study was promising as well, so we said we want to pursue. Let's go to the next step and let's do a proper research study. What you see here in this picture is actually the setup of our more rigorous scientific study. So we got the online version of bio-feature installed in our lab, in our experimental lab, and we invited 250 students to play with us and educated a bunch of facilitators to actually run the games. I will go into detail in a second. We did the whole experiment to answer 2 questions. First of all, we wanted to know to what extent does this serious game bio-feature contribute to the challenges that we have seen before? Secondly, we wanted to raise the question, what kind of outcome does it produce? And particularly, if we mix groups in a certain way, how does the outcome vary depending on the mix or the formation of teams that we've chosen? So, as said, this was a controlled laboratory experiment. The overall design was as depicted here on this page. Just, can you see my mouse? Can you see my pointer? Okay, cool. Okay, so this is the pre-study that I mentioned before at the bank. So this was basically just the intro for us. For the experiment that we did is we said first we need a portfolio that we have to make a decision about. So we took 82 ideas. In this case, it was startup ideas from crowdfunding platforms. And in kind of a focus or a nominal group setting, we gathered together a couple of experts and asked them to rate these 82 ideas. How incremental or how radical these ideas were. We used a certain methodology. I don't go into detail now. You could read it in the paper. It's the Henderson and Clark model, well cited, well known in literature. So we actually asked these experts to cluster our 82 ideas, and were lucky enough to come up with 8 incremental and 8 quite radical ideas, and a bunch of other ideas in the middle. So we only took these 8 incremental and 8 radical and designed a portfolio of 16 ideas to play. Afterwards, we started our experiment. We invited 250 students. We asked each of the students to fill in a personality test. So they were, probably some of you have heard of the Big 5 test. That's the very basic personality traits that we see in humans. And we asked the people to fill in this test. Then we had a close look at one of the 5 scores. This Big 5, as the name says, it's got 5 dimensions, so 5 personality dimensions, and one of them was particularly interesting to us. It's the so-called openness to the openness score, and the openness score means how open are you to new experiences. And this is, as we know from science, is very closely correlated to creativity. So we use this openness score as a proxy for creativity. And then we designed teams. So we took the 250 students, made them fill in the test, and designed teams of homogeneous, very creative people, a homogeneous group of people of medium creativity, of lower creativity, and then we had mixed teams. The number of teams is what you can see here. So we had 12 teams with overall high scores, 12 teams with overall medium scores, and so on, and 14 teams of mixed scores. And we made them play by a feature, spending their money on the 16 ideas, 8 of them being incremental, 8 of them being radical. And we want to see how they perform and what the outcome was depending on the kind of team, or the team formation. I'll show you the results in a second. After the whole game, we asked them to fill in what you can see here on the right-hand side called TAM. It's a technology acceptance model. It's a scientific test, very established test to see how much people accept a new technology and how they perceive it. And from this questionnaire at the very end, we hope to get some insights on how people liked the game and how they perceived it overall. So let's have a look at the results. What you see here in the background is basically this technology acceptance model. And I'll just give you an idea, a very rough idea of the outcome here. It's got lots and lots of dimensions, and here's just probably the most interesting, which you can see overall. Each dimension, so each construct that you see on the left-hand side, it's got a scale from 1 to 7. So what you see here is that the average that people scored the game was in the upper third of the possible evaluation. So in the upper third, people said they found it, they perceived it as enjoyable. They found the game easy to use. Then we saw something which was very interesting to us. You see here a construct called output quality. So people were still kind of confident, but not to the same extent as the other dimension, or the other constructs. about the outcome of the game. So they said, okay, yeah, the ideas that we picked, it's okay, yeah. They were not totally convinced. However, what you see below, the results demonstrability, it's a score where you say, if you would need to go out to someone else who was not involved in the game, and you would have to defend the outcome of the game to them, how confident would you feel about this? And you can see this is a quite high score. So this means that people say, it's really, this is what we came up with. It's probably a fairly good assessment what we did. But since we did it as a team, we stand up for it and we defend it to outsiders. So this was a quite interesting aspect. And this reflects what we can see in many other documents, many other studies, in particular in the field from open innovation, that open innovation very often leads to very good results, but more, a little bit above average in terms of novelty, in terms of radicalness. And the same here. So they said we did a fairly good job, and they were defending it very strongly. Overall, this was quite funny. We asked them before we started the whole experiment to say what their mood level was. So how did they feel about the day? And then we asked them to do the same thing again after the whole thing, and we saw an increase. So we actually, even though we kept them busy for a whole hour, we saw them, improving their mood level. So I will come back to interpreting these results, and let's quickly have a look at the second type of results. We wanted to know how the different teams perform. And what you see here is, and you can see this in particular on the left-hand side, and I don't go into the mathematical details at this point in time. You see that in our case, it was possible to buy roughly 6 ideas from the budget that was provided to each team. So you see the medium, the low, and the mixed groups, they all bought pretty much an average, pretty much the same amount of radical ideas as they bought the amount of incremental ideas. So 3 radical, 3 ideas left, so 3 incremental. The only group that was differing from this average was the high group, so a group of people that consists of highly creative people only. So it was not good enough to mix lower and higher creativity. It was not good enough to have medium. And you see lots of creative people coming together. You saw that they, kind of get excited about the more radical ideas. This is what we found quite interesting. On the next slide, this is also some probably a very scientific chart. It's actually confirming exactly what I said before. It's not good enough to be creative as a single person. It really shows that you have to be in a certain environment, i.e. in a group of peers that has a similarly high score. So you actually go for the more brave ideas. So, in a nutshell, what did we learn from the study? We learned that the attractiveness is probably a contribute. The biofeature game that we saw and that we experimented with, that it contributes to the attractiveness of idea assessments. So we saw that people liked, we saw their mood level going up. It is an IT support system. It's something that you could do online. We played it remotely in a lab. Where people were separated by walls, they were put in little cabins, so it was basically simulating a remote environment. And just by the nature of the game, which was also contributing to fighting these so-called hollow go decisions, because we gave people money and there was no way to tick off an idea, i.e. pushing it forward without actually providing budget. So something that's very often happens in real life, and by just by management decision, this is something that you could avoid here. However, it did not really show, or we couldn't find any evidence that it helps us to cope with the increasingly large portfolios. It's still a game played by some people, and it's still a limited amount of ideas. So on this side, we did not yet see evidence. So this is probably a field of further research, how this could scale. And also tapping the knowledge of staff. Yes, we could invite staff here. However, the number of people that we usually invite into one single team to make decisions is quite limited. So again, these points are not yet evident, fields of further research. Overall, in a nutshell, with regards to the team design, the game tends to lead to very balanced outcomes in terms of what kind of ideas get selected, as we could see. However, if we want to introduce a bias, so we want to play the game and we want to design a group that focuses probably on the more brave ideas, on the more radical ideas, there is a way to do it, and we saw that it is necessary to pool together those people with a high creativity score and put them in one team so that they can actually focus on the more radical ideas. And the average teams or the mixed teams, they all produce quite balanced portfolios at the end. In terms of further research, what we are doing now, or we are looking forward to do in the future is we would like to do a field study, i.e. compare our lab results, because it was only a lab experiment and it's not reality. So we would like to compare what we have seen in the lab to a real life setting. In particular, we would like to see the dynamics in teams on both sides, i.e. look at how the interaction during the game was taking place in the lab and how does it take place in reality. And what are those people who are opinion makers? What are those people who determine when a team decides for a certain idea? There's also the idea to benchmark the game with more traditional decision-making methods. And we only, as I said, we only focused on the creativity trait, the personality trait of openness. There are other personality traits which could be interesting to do research on. So this is something that we would like to do as well. Finally, there might be a chance to compare online versus offline games, i.e. does it make a difference if we play this over the internet or if we have people physically interacting? Also very interesting field of research. So this is another task on our list. And with this, I would like to hand over to Tommy and Luke for questions.
Okay, we've got time for maybe 2 or 3 questions, but there is a specific ask that we have. We are looking for a corporation to join us as a research partner in this work so that we can continue to evolve and test these ideas and improve them so that we can reach that objective of how do we create optimal team structures. So consider what it might mean for your company, the economic impact if you can have one project go through the gate more effectively by having the right people involved in the right structure and in the right format, in the right point or place in the multidimensional space. But with that said, any questions or thoughts that you guys want to throw? And Niels, let us know if you can't hear this. We're going to hand the microphone to the questioners.
Sure.
Hi, Niels. Thank you for sharing. Yesterday, one of the presenters shared his personal struggles with bias by organizing the product box groups based on their departmental specialty. And so now we have statistically significant measurements of bias in games. So as a facilitator, I know that this is something to be concerned about. Can you think of, or can perhaps you guys think of, situations where I would want to inject bias into a game, and then maybe these research methods would help me do that?
Okay. Luke, could you do me a favor and repeat the question? There was a lot of echoing on the line.
Yeah, Niels, the question is, in what circumstances would a producer prefer to design bias into a game to achieve an apparently desired outcome?
Right. And I did not mention this in my talk. The idea why we came up with looking for these kind of biases and introducing wanted biases basically came out of a discussion with the first company that we did the pre-study with. And I also presented one of the preliminary results in an entrepreneurial talk over here in Germany. And when a CEO of a company asked me the question, so he said, I'm happy to involve my staff in decision-making on ideas, on ideas for innovation. However, there's something in like a strategy in my company. So what do I do if my strategy is an aggressive strategy? I look for, I want to be a first mover. I want to be a company. I want to be really aggressive. And my people are kind of exhausted and they vote for the more incremental ideas. These two sides would not fit together. On the opposite side, if you're a company and you're, just from your innovation strategy, you're more like of a laggard. And the people said, oh, we want to do something exciting as well. And they vote for the more radical stuff. Then you have a mismatch again, because the strategy is saying, it's targeting to us a different way. So he said, so what kind of possibility do I have to get the best, involve my staff and involving them in finding the best ideas out of the character of ideas that fit best to my strategy. So this was the thought, or this was the question that the practitioners came up with in our preliminary talks.
And so,
so
I think another way to think about this is when we are facilitators, right? We strive to manage and minimize our facilitation bias, but we all have bias. We all have acknowledged that as players, all of our players have various forms of bias. But, unfortunately, too many of the research communities kind of sweep biases under the rug, like, oh, we can kind of get away with it. And I don't think that that's good enough. I'm unwilling to accept that is good enough. Now, there's both a positive and a negative side, right, to understanding this capability, right? If you wanted to be nefarious, you could load a game in a certain way to create a certain kind of outcome that will drive a certain kind of behavior. I don't know if that's what we want, but it could be a negative outcome of what we're talking about. But if we don't take on understanding it, we won't know how to create the best outcomes in the first place. So it's going to create a lot more power in our hands. And over time, we're going to have to figure out how to use that power responsibly, because we all know the greatest quote in all of comics: with great power comes great responsibility. Okay, any more questions, or do we have one more back there? No. Niels, thank you so much for staying up on a Friday for us and working a little late. We really appreciate it. For those of you who are interested, let us know, and we'll keep you apprised of this work. We think it's groundbreaking, exciting, deeply contributing to the pool and reservoir of knowledge, and definitely advancing some of the dimensions that we need to understand better to manage the multidimensional space of play. So thank you so much, Niels.
Thanks. And if anybody's interested, And if anybody's interested in the paper and reading the paper, just to let you know, the paper actually won an award as one of the most innovative papers at one of the top information system conferences this year. So you can actually just drop me a note, and I am happy to send you the paper if you want.
Thank you so much, Niels.
Thanks. Bye. Good night. Bye.